Good morning, River of Life Community Fellowship. It is time for our Thursday edition of Sunday School, where we get to have a short daily devotion since we can't meet in person for Sunday School. This week we've been talking a lot about how God grows our faith and how our faith is so dependent on God, and how God corrects the things in our hearts that are preventing faith from growing and all of that. And we talked a lot about how our faith is meant to produce something, that there is supposed to be a fruit that is produced by our faith. And I think yesterday we talked about the vine and the branches, how just kind of a very stern warning: if we're not producing fruit, then what happens is we get snipped off and put to the side. We wither and we dry out, and then we're burned. And that's a scary thing, and that's a hard thing. Just like, how can a loving God do that? And it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around. But today I want to talk a little bit about a different thing that God does in that area. And this is from a parable that Jesus told, and it's found in Luke chapter 13, starting in verse 6. I'm just going to read this to you here. And he told this parable: a man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and found none. He said to the vine dresser, "Look, for 3 years now I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and I have found none. Cut it down. Why should it use up the ground?" So he answered him, "Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and put on manure. Then if it should bear fruit next year, well and good, but if not, you can cut it down." So what I get out of this verse, especially thinking about what Jesus said about the vine and the vine dresser, and he is the vine, and we are the branches, and when I compare all of that to what I see here is that God gives us chances to start to produce fruit. He says, the vine dresser said, "Hey, you know what? Let's let it alone a little bit longer," and then to give us a chance to produce fruit. But he doesn't just leave us to that. He doesn't just say, "Okay, we're just going to give it one more year and see what happens." He takes effort to help it along. And so what does he do? "Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and put on manure." And so, he does this thing. He corrects the soil. We talked about that on Sunday. God corrects the soil. He digs around it, breaks up the hardness of the soil so that the water can seep down better, so that the nutrients can grow, or can get to the roots, and the roots can cause the tree to grow. And then also put on manure. And that doesn't sound fun. Who wants to be covered in manure? But the truth is, as stinky and as gross and as yucky as manure is, there are nutrients in manure that help plants grow. And so what I get out of that is, God gives us chances to grow, but he doesn't just leave us in that. He does things to help us grow, but those things are usually hard. Those things usually aren't easy. It involves a digging, a breaking up of hard ground, and it involves dealing with things that are gross, that are stinky, that are not fun. And so those things happen in our life to help us grow, to help us produce fruit. And as hard as it is to go through hard things, God uses those to help us live out the purpose that we were created for. God is he doesn't leave us just to wither. He doesn't just let us go. He helps us to produce fruit by having us go through hard things. And that's an important thing to note, because one of the things that we talked about was that it rains on the just and the unjust alike. That good things happen to good people and bad people. Bad things happen to good people and bad things. These things just happen, but God uses them to do good things in our lives, to help us produce fruit, to help us live the purpose he created us to live in. And that is such a cool thing, and that is such an important thing to hold on to when we're going through hard things. And even, if we kind of have this idea, okay, am I producing fruit? I'm worried I'm not. Am I going to get cut off? It's also, we can have hope to know that God isn't just going to cut us off, that he's going to do things to help us produce the fruit that we're supposed to produce. And we can have hope in that. and we can have joy in that, and we can just trust God in that, in just knowing that He's not cutting us off, and He's not leaving us alone, that He is going to help us produce fruit. And that's a good thing. Now, and this that dealing that question, am I producing good fruit? Tomorrow in our Sunday school tidbit, we are going to talk about what fruit looks like, what that fruit looks like in our lives. So I encourage you to stay tuned for that, to look for it on all of our social media channels and YouTube. But but in the meantime, make sure you're connected to God. Make sure you're seeking Him out. You're dealing with the sin that comes between you and Him, and allow Him to do the things in your life that need to be done so that you can produce good fruit. Thanks, and God bless.